Then the people would have to eat each other, and soon the land of Winkle would be void of all living creatures, and only the pile of bones would remain as a permanent reminder of the folly of men. This upset poor Girdle, and she started to cry. This made Grumph and the animals ashamed, because they didn't want Girdle to cry, but only wanted to explain to her why Grumph didn't have any bones. Grumph stroked her hand to soothe her, and the hummingbirds hovered near her cheeks. The wind from their wings soon dried Girdle's tears. This upset poor Girdle, and she started to cry. This made Grumph and the animals ashamed, because they didn't want Girdle to cry, but only wanted to explain to her why Grumph didn't have any bones. Grumph stroked her hand to soothe her, and the hummingbirds hovered near her cheeks. The wind from their wings soon dried Girdle's tears. "Listen," said a squirrel. "I have an idea. Let's have a picnic." All the other animals thought this was a good idea too. They left Grumph and Girdle holding each other in the tall grass and searched for food. The squirrel came back with nuts, and the birds brought them cherries. Each animal brought a different kind of food. All the animals agreed it was the best picnic they ever had. At the end of the day, they declared Grumph to be the prince of animals, and declared Girdle was their princess. All the animals agreed. At night, Girdle had to go back to the village, because she lived with her mother and father. But every morning she would come back to the tall grass and reeds. There Grumph would be waiting for her, and they would smoke bulrushes and play together all day. Girdle quickly became loved by the animals. She was very kind and compassionate. If any of the animals got a thorn in their foot, then they would come to Girdle, who would pull it out. If any of the animals broke a limb, Girdle would make a cast out of mud and bind it together with reeds. It was hard to tell which person the animals loved the most, for although Grumph had been their friend for a long time, and Girdle for only a short time, they loved both of them equally well. Grumph was happier than he had ever been in his life, for he was in love and had found himself a wife. Girdle became prettier and prettier, because she loved Grumph as well. One day they decided to let all the people of the land of Winkle know they were married. This proved to be a mistake. As soon as Girdle's parents knew they were about to be married, they wanted to meet Grumph. Now Grumph was willing to meet them, because Grumph loved her parents very much, because Girdle loved her parents very much. And Grumph was even willing not to tell them they were wrong to hunt animals to collect bones. From previous experience, Grumph knew that the people of the land of Winkle got very angry when he told them this. But alas, Girdle's parents didn't like Grumph. First of all, Grumph was hairy, while other men were only fuzzy. Secondly, Grumph smoked bulrushes, which was against the rule in the land of Winkle. Now even these first two faults would have been forgiven if Grumph had a lot of bones. But when Girdle's parents found out he didn't even have one bone, they told Girdle she shouldn't see Grumph again. Girdle didn't mind the fact that Grumph was hairy. In fact, she thought it was rather cute. And Girdle smoked bulrushes herself, so she knew that smoking bulrushes wasn't really a bad thing to do. But her parents and all her friends had bones, and Girdle wanted bones too, so she could be like all the other people. Besides, people laughed at Grumph because he didn't have any bones. Now Girdle still came to see Grumph because she loved him, and she loved the animals too, but she wouldn't marry Grumph unless he got some bones. Poor Grumph. You see, Grumph loved Girdle so very much that he would do anything in his power to make her happy. He even cut his hair and became fuzzy like all the other people, but this wasn't enough. The important thing was that Grumph was a poet and wouldn't go hunting with the other men. If he wouldn't hunt, he couldn't get any bones. Now sometimes men would give him a bone for writing a poem. Poor Grumph worked very hard, wrote many poems, but he still got very few bones, not nearly enough bones to marry Girdle. As he tried to find a way of getting bones without hunting, but as everybody told him, the only way to get bones was to go hunting with other men. One day Girdle never came to the tall grass where Grumph was waiting for her. This was a very sad day for Grumph and all the other animals. Grumph even cried. Now men aren't supposed to cry, but this was a rule. This was a rule of the land of Winkle. But Grumph broke so many rules that one more didn't really matter. Besides, Grumph was a poet, and poets have a little leeway in breaking rules, like no crying. But Grumph cried so hard, so long, he actually raised the level of the pond. Now, all the animals tried to console Grumph, but it wasn't any good. You see, Grumph loved the animals very much, but none of the animals was the least bit like Gurdle. There are two possible ways to end this story. The first possibility is that Grumph becomes fuzzy like all the other men, quits smoking bulrushes, and becomes a hunter. If Grumph did this, there would be no one left to tell the people of the land of Winkle that hunting animals and collecting bones was wrong. Besides, Grumph could never talk to the animals with poems again. Second possibility is that the people of the land of Winkle give up hunting and collecting bones and become poets like Grumph. Now, this isn't very likely, even if all the people in the land of Winkle smoked bulrushes. Number ones and number twos, which of the endings would you choose? Actually, there's a third possibility. Normally, this wouldn't be permitted since it breaks a rule of the land of Winkle that any story can only have two possible endings. But then again, this isn't really a story, it's a fairy tale. And in a fairy tale, anything is possible. What happens in this fairy tale is that all the frogs collect old bulrushes and bring them to Grumph, who with the help of the beaver builds a raft. Then two doves fly in the village that night and tap with their beaks on Gurdle's window pane. They give her a poem from Grumph. Gurdle, my friend, come see me again. With a raft of fronds we'll sail the pond and follow a breeze to the land of the free. Seeing as this is a fairy tale, Gurdle decides to accept, and Gurdle and Grumph, sitting hand in hand on the raft of bulrushes, are towed by the swans clear across the pond, where the water is fresh and clean, and motorboats and hunters have never been. The end.